Hey everyone, welcome to my kitchen. No, I'm not cooking. I'm literally only here to get a drink of water before we sit down and talk. My name is Chioma, by the way, if this happens to be the first time that you see me. I actually want to sit down and give you all the details around the things that are considered when you show evidence of financial capacity for your student visa application. There's still a lot of questions about what the amount is, people asking me how much do I need to show that I have if I'm coming in with family, if I'm coming in with this number of children, or just myself. Can I have my family member who is neither my spouse nor my parents sponsor my education or show proof of funds that they are sponsoring my education in Australia? So lots of questions actually. We need to sit down for this conversation. It's not something that I'm going to be standing while we discuss. Yeah. So welcome back. Are we all settled? Let's get started. I want to talk about proof of funds from the perspective of a single applicant, but also from the perspective of someone applying to come in with family members. Let's begin with the single applicants. If you are a single applicant, first of all, I am going to ask you to forget about the 62,222 Australian dollars for a minute. I will come back to that later, but let's forget that for a minute. If you're thinking about how to show that you have enough money to look after yourself while you're here, let me talk about the 3 things that should guide your decisions in terms of the exact amount that should be enough for your stay. Okay, remember that proof of funds, generally speaking, is only for 12 months, the first 12 months of your stay in Australia. Okay, so we're not talking about proving that you have financial capacity to look after yourself the entirety of your course. Okay, you might be doing a 2-year course, a 3-year course. That's not what immigration is asking you for. They just want you to show that in the first 12 months after you arrive in Australia, you will be able to look after yourself. So keep that in mind when we discuss proof of funds. First of all, your tuition costs. I'm going to give an example here. Let's say that for the entirety of your study, you're going to be paying $30,000 towards your tuition, and you happen to be studying a 2-year program. 12 months of tuition fees would be $15,000. That's if you divide 30,000 into 2, right? So let's say, for instance, that as part of accepting your enrollment into that course, you've already paid $5,000 towards the first installment of your tuition fees, right? So you still have a balance of $10,000. You need to make sure that the $10,000 is sitting in your account. That is for your tuition. And obviously you will have to show evidence of the payment of the $5,000. So on top of your tuition cost, the next thing that you need to consider would be your living expenses. For living expenses, the immigration department has set a standard amount for 21,041 Australian dollars. Okay, so you want to add 21,041 to the $10,000, which is the balance on your tuition fees for 1 year. It brings us to a total of $31,041. Now, depending on where you will be traveling from into Australia, there are standard amounts that have been set on the immigration website as well for travel expenses. If you're coming from West Africa, which is the example I want to use in this video, the amount is $3,000. So let's include $3,000 to what we calculated earlier, and that brings us to a total of $34,041. This is the amount that at the very least needs to be sitting in your account to demonstrate evidence of financial capacity. Does that make sense? Because you're not coming in with family, we're not going to include costs for your partner or for your children. It is just yourself. So for you, you have to consider the cost of your tuition for 12 months, okay, minus the amount you've already paid. You have to factor in your living expenses, which is a standard amount, as I mentioned, and your travel expenses. Some of the ways that you can actually demonstrate financial capacity would be through bank deposits in your name. Okay, so if you've got that amount in your own bank account, that is fine, as long as it's been sitting in there for minimum of 90 days, that is okay. It can also be from a family member. Now, what I am going to throw in here is that if you have someone sponsoring you who is neither your spouse nor your parents, then they will also have to include a sponsorship letter. And if they've got evidence of sponsoring your education previously, they also want to provide that evidence. It will also go towards your GTE statement or your GTE requirement as well. It can also be a loan from a financial institution like a bank or a microfinance organization, you know, as long as it's a legitimate financial corporation that issues loans and where you can also get evidence of disbursement of that loan. Just as long as you're able to prove that it's a legitimate business, then you can also show proof of financial capacity through a loan. Another way to show proof of financial capacity, which is where a lot of people have kind of gotten confused, and which is where that amount of 62,222 Australian dollars comes in, is if you choose to demonstrate that your spouse or your parents will be sponsoring your education, in which case that is where the 62,222 Australian dollars comes in. Your spouse or your parents would then need to show evidence that they earn that amount in 1 year. That's the difference here. It doesn't mean that they have to show that they have that amount sitting in an account. They have to show that they earn up to that amount in 1 year. And the way to show this would be to present tax assessments, not through a bank statement. When it comes to you as a single student visa applicant, okay, the amount that you need to show would depend on how you want to demonstrate evidence of financial capacity. If you're doing it through another family member, or you're getting a loan, or it's from the savings that you have accrued over the years, then it will be the first option I mentioned, which is to calculate your tuition fees, your living expenses, your travel cost, and that will give you an indicative figure. So as you can already tell, going by the calculations we made, that figure would be different from person to person, because depending on the course you're coming to study, different courses attract different tuition fees, right? So it would depend on your personal situation. So having spoken about that, let's talk about applying as a family. So let me just give you a run through of what family applicants can expect to be paying. Again, this is an indicative figure. You do the calculation based on, you know, your family situation, how many kids you've got, and the exact course you're coming to study, and the exact fees for the course you're coming to study. So living expenses for yourself as the primary applicant still sits at $21,041. For your partner, it is $7,362. For each child you have that is included in that application, it is $3,162 multiplied by the number of children. Okay, that's for living expenses. And then we still have to talk about your tuition fees. So again, calculate your tuition fees for the first 12 months of your studies. You also minus any amount you've already paid towards your tuition from your first 12 months of study. So you include that study amount into the total we got from the first breakdown regarding living expenses for yourself, your partner, and your children or your child. Okay, and then on top of that, you also want to consider if any of your children are of school age. If they are of school age, you also need to show evidence that you have money for their enrollment. But even better, if you have already enrolled them, then you also need to show evidence that you have paid their tuition. Now, just in case you've not done the enrollment yet, like I said, you need to show that you have enough money to cover the enrollment of your children. And the indicative amount for school enrollments for children, it's $8,296. Yeah, I'm referring to my notes. So that's the amount you need to show to cover the enrollment of any school-aged children you're coming in with. Again, that amount is just for one child. So if you have more children of school age, you want to multiply that amount by the number of children who are of school age. Yeah, so that's it for living expenses, course fees, and also enrollment fees for your dependent children. And then on top of that, you also want to add travel expenses. The travel amount, as I said earlier, has been set at $3,000 for applicants coming from West Africa. Now, $3,000 is only for you as the primary applicant. You need to multiply that amount by the number of people who will be traveling. So in the case that you're not traveling together as a family, you're going to be coming in first as the primary student visa holder, and you're hoping for your family to join you much later. I already mentioned this in a previous video, and maybe you want to go watch that video, because in that video I spoke about some of the things that you should be really careful around, especially if you're using an agent, because they might not be telling you these things and it can actually cause your visa to be denied. So please go and watch that video. But what I was going to say is that even if you're not coming in together in the first instance, it would be advisable, I would advise and strongly recommend that you have the money sitting in your account that will cover everybody in your family, everybody who is going to eventually join you in Australia, okay? So do not only prove financial capacity for your own self, and then at the time that your family is coming in, that's when you want to source for money, and all of a sudden a significant amount of money is seen to have dropped into your account unexplained. Except of course you've got a really strong explanation as to the source of that money, then that should be fine. But usually you do not want to do anything that would raise suspicions or red flags with the visa officer. So if you're able to have that amount sitting in your account from the beginning, that will be great. So there is this other amount that has been stated on the website, which is 72,592 Australian dollars for families, okay? Families traveling together, okay? That amount again only applies if you're going to be showing evidence of financial capacity using documents from your spouse or documents from your parents. So that amount is what you need to show that your spouse is making in a year, or that your parents, whether it is one parent or or both your parents combined, are making in a year. And again, it needs to be shown in tax assessment documents. I hope this video has made sense. There are so many ways that you can demonstrate financial capacity: through loans from a financial institution, from bank deposits in your name, or bank deposits in another family member's name who is going to write a sponsorship letter for you, or it could be through your spouse or through your parents. And it can also be through scholarship. If maybe you're coming in on a scholarship, then you also need to show that your scholarship will cover all of this. And if your scholarship amount does not cover everything, you still need to arrange proof of funds to cover all the other things that your scholarship does not cover. I hope this clarifies a lot of your confusion. But if you still have questions after this video, please feel free to ask, okay? I am more than happy to try and clarify some of that for you. I'll see you again soon. In the meantime, before you click out of this video, make sure to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.